Ready, sir.
Namaste. Welcome to this talk. I think first in the series of talks by Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice is part of Indic Academy. And as you are aware, Indic Academy is committed for preservation of Indic traditions and protection of Indic perspective and promotion of Indic cultural aspects. As part of that, we have many wings of Indic Academy. One of them was actually started by the initiative from the late Justice Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya family. This particular Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice was initiated by the family of late Justice Pamadigantam Kodandaramaya, who was the High Court Justice of Andhra Pradesh. And this family, illustrious family, has many figures working in the legal field and jurisprudence areas. And as part of this initiative, what was initiated was studies in the shaastras and itihasas and puranas and scriptures of our ancient tradition, and how they can be used for the current legal practice, legal methodology, legal procedures, and the philosophy of law, which is in contemporary parlance, we use the word jurisprudence. And as part of this, there many initiatives were taken. A study of law of evidence was organized with a group of scholars from all the three angles, from the Shastric scholars, from the legal professionals, and jurisprudence professors in the legal universities, law and justice universities. And recently we conducted a conference on Hindu thought on ethics, law, and justice also. And today, with this talk, we are starting a series of talks on various issues of law and justice, jurisprudence related issues, particularly drawing from our ancient shaastras and scriptures. And this particular talk is going to be given by a Shastric scholar, Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana garu. He is a scholar of Tarka Shaastra and Vedanta both. And when we approached him for a talk on these aspects, our first request was to, we asked him to speak on our debate traditions. Currently, this has become, debate traditions in ancient India has become a very good topic of books and publications. Professor Radhavalla Tripathi has come up with a book on Vaada, and there are other books on Vaada traditions and other publications. When we were discussing this with the Tarka Vidvanmani, our Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana garu, he was saying that Vaada itself is a huge field. Within that, there are more niche areas which are more useful for the legal practice and in general for the public also, for critical thinking, for university students, for research students, for the general public approaching information from the media. For everyone, this is a very important area that the Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice can contribute. And he said, when he said that this is a niche area, I said probably that is going to be a very small portion of the whole Vaada aspect. He said, actually, the time that you are giving me, 1 hour, is not going to be sufficient even to cover this micro issue called Hetva Bhasa. And it was amazing. I thought, okay, So then that should be really interesting. How much of such depth and width of analysis probably has gone into these aspects of our critical thinking, reasoning, argument, debate in our shastras. So we can see the depth and width in the coverage of this from Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu's own talk from now onwards. Namaste, Suryanarayana Garu.
Namaste, sir.
Yes, over to you.
Thank you very much. So, Namaste. So, I want to start this session with a small Mangalam. Om Shuklam Varadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigno Pashantaye Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much, Nagaraj sir, to giving me this wonderful opportunity to share what I know about the Hetva Bhasa or fallacious reasoning according to Tarka Shaastra. So I have created a small slide deck for a better understanding for the new seekers in the Shastric world. So first of all, I will be dealing with these 5 concepts which are related to Hetva Bhasa. Hetva Bhasa comes at the end, but before that we have to know some other concepts like Samshaya, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Vyapti and Hetva Bhasa. I will be dealing everything using a crime scene as an example. So first of all, I want to say that the Tarka Shaastra is also called as Vaada Shastra and Pramaana Shastra. So in our tradition, Tattvajnanan Nishreya Sadhigamaha we hear in both Nyaaya Darshana and also in Vaisheshika Darshana, which means that Nishreyasa is the Parama Prayojana or the ultimate goal of anybody's life. So to attain that goal, Tattvajnana is the sadhana or the instrument. And to attain Tattvajnana or the ultimate reality, know the ultimate reality, what are the instruments needed? What are the concepts that we have to know? Those things are dealt in Tarka Shaastra. And Tarka Shastra is the combination of Nyaaya Darshana and Vaisheshika Darshana. So in this Tarka Shastra, Vaada Parampara or the art of debate, study of debate is extensively dealt with. And it is also called as Pramaana Shastra, where it is talking about the means of knowledge. So today I shall just introduce some concepts from that Tarka Shastra. So here, first of all, I am taking a small crime scene to elaborate and introduce these concepts. So first of all, there was a person called Somu and he had a family and all of them were living in a crowded area in a small home. Okay. And one day a loud scream came out of that house and everybody who are around that house were astonished. Means they don't know why that loud scream came. And somebody went inside and saw Somu, the owner of that house, in a bloody pool, means lot of blood. So as soon as they saw that, they realized that he had been killed by somebody and they have called the police. I'm taking this crime scene because in the jurisprudence, generally, most of the concepts are dealt giving these kinds of examples. And nowadays, we all are very much accustomed because of the OTT and the other platforms. So how a crime scene is dealt and how is the evidence taken and how is the lawyer arguing and all those things, we are slightly accustomed. So I'm taking the same scenario. So we'll come back here to the scene 2, where the police is being called. And in the scene 3, the police have prepared an FIR, first investigation report, where they have inferred, actually, the police reported that the murder had been committed by an intruder using a very large and sharp object. So by this statement, it is known that somebody who is living inside the home or the house did not commit that crime, but somebody came inside, and a very large, which is very heavy and which is also very sharp, is being used to kill him. So this is what the FIR says, and they don't know who actually killed him. And according to the investigation, a watchman noticed in the due investigation, there was a watchman in front of that same house, and he noticed that somebody whose name is Ramu walked out of that building with a lot of blood stains all over his shirt and pant and all those things. So he just noticed it, and he told that Ramu, who lives nearby, actually came out of that house near to the same time when a loud scream came out of that house. So this is the 4th scene. And if we go to the 5th scene, you all know that there is somebody called prosecution and the defense. And we can state that according to the Shastric terminology as the Purva Paksha and the Uttara Paksha. And it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong by the name itself. Purva Paksha doesn't mean always that they are wrong, and Uttara Paksha doesn't mean that always they are right. But there are 2 Pakshas, like the prosecution and the defense. Prosecution is somebody who is doing the inquiry, and the defense is that who is charged with the crime will go into the defense. He will defend himself. So that is why he is called as the defense. So there are 2 parties now. So the prosecution states in the court that Ramu murdered Somu. Ramu is this person with the blue colored shirt and a walking stick. Ramu murdered Somu. Somu is that person who is the owner of that home, because he had lot of blood stains on his shirt while he is coming out of the Somu's house. At the same time means when the loud scream was heard by many, this watchman saw that Ramu was coming, and he recognized him as Ramu because he lives in the same locality. So this is the Vivaranam. And the defense says that Ramu did not murder Somu because he could not handle the heavy instrument, as he is a physically differently abled person. Means he can't hear properly, number 1. Number 2, his leg and hand is non-functional. Means it's like we say pakshavata. So something like that. He cannot actually fully use his one hand and one leg. And the second point is that he is deaf. So the defense is stating that this person is not in a state to use a very heavy object or instrument to kill somebody, which is very sharp. So he need to have all his physical ability. He should be agile to use that kind of an instrument, which is stated in the FIR. So this is the defense. So after hearing this, after hearing the both pakshas, the Purva Paksha and the Uttara Paksha, the prosecution's opening statement and the defense's opening statement, the judge who is hearing will come to a doubt. He is getting a doubt now. Is Ramu the murderer of Somu or not? Did Ramu murdered Somu or not? Is the doubt. So hope everybody understood what I want to say here. So there is a very densely populated area where there is one home. A loud scream came out. Most of them heard it, and they have gone inside and saw that a person is killed. They have informed the police, and the police have investigated and they have lodged the FIR. And where they are stating that a very large and a sharp object is used to murder him. And a watchman saw a person called Ramu coming out of the home with bloodstains, and both of them, the prosecution and the defense, have stated their statements. So after hearing this, the judge is now in the state of doubt. He don't know whether Ramu really murdered the Somu or not. So now, after elaborating the crime scene, I want to introduce some shastric concepts. The number one shastric concept is called samshaya, which is murder. And the definition of samshaya is ekasmin dharmini viruddha nana dharma avagahi jnanam. Ekasmin dharmini viruddha nana dharma avagahi jnanam. So dharmi is one object or subject. So in our doubt, judge's doubt, Ramu is our main object. So the doubt is that whether Ramu killed or didn't kill. So then viruddha nana dharma. Viruddha is contradictory, where the same person can't be attributed with two things which contradict to each other. So he murdered Somu, he didn't murder Somu. So these two are contradictory. So when a person is perceiving or knowing two contradictory attributes to one object, then it is called as a doubt. Okay, now our judge is in the state of doubt. So the defense and the prosecution should actually get some evidences, produce some means of knowledge, which are called as pramanas, to make clear, to establish one point. So the prosecution will be trying to establish that Ramu is a murderer, and the defense will try to establish that he is not a murderer. So this is the scenario. So the second shastric concept I want to introduce is called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha is one amongst the four pramanas, and pramana is the means of knowledge. So pratyaksha is such a knowledge which is derived due to the contact between sensory organs and the object. And in our scenario, number one is that lot of sounds, loud screaming sound came out of this home, and all these people who are around this home actually heard it. They heard and understood that it is a very loud scream. So this is the first pratyaksha we have encountered in this scenario. And the second one is that when these people went inside, they have seen Somu in a bloody pool, and also the policemen who reached after the complaint, they have also saw that. And seeing is also one another pratyaksha. And the other thing is that our watchman actually saw Ramu coming out of this home. So that is also another pratyaksha. And the definition for pratyaksha is indriyartha sannikarshotpannam jnanam pratyaksham. Jnanam is knowledge. Utpannam, which is derived because of sannikarsha. Sannikarsha is the relationship or sambandha. And this relationship is between two things, indriya and artha. Indriya is senses and artha is the object. So this is the elaboration. And the third one I want to introduce today is anumana. Anumana is actually the inference. Inference means we know something directly and we know something else indirectly. That is called anumana. So something we know which is not directly seen or heard or known to your sensory organs is called as anumanam. So in the scene 3, the statement is something like this. In the FIR, the police reported that the murder had been committed by an intruder using a very large and sharp object. Actually, that very large and sharp object is not seen in the crime area. Where the crime is committed, there you cannot see that large and sharp object, but the police mentions that it might be a murder. It is not a suicide, self atmahatya. It's not an Atmahatya. So it is a murder by using, and an intruder broke in. That also is mentioned in the FIR, and using a very large and sharp object. So the police was not there in the scene when the crime was committed. So they are actually drawing some inferences by seeing some things. For example, if they are inferring that some intruder came inside, which means that the residents of that home didn't want somebody to come in, so he forcefully came inside. And there are some traces to say that he forcefully came inside. So that is why they are using the word intruder. And the second thing is that a very large and sharp object. So this can be inferred by seeing the wound of that particular person, and all these things come under inference. And that inference is called as anumanam in the Shastra. And the definition for anumana is vyapti jnana janyam jnanam anumitihi. Anumitihi is the inference, and anumana is the process of inference, the means of inference. So what is anumiti? Anumiti means vyapti jnana janyam jnanam. So jnanam again is knowledge. Janyam is again derived. It is derived because of a knowledge called vyapti jnana. So what is vyapti jnana? Vyapti jnana is that kind of a knowledge which exists, which is something like invariably related things. Like when I see smoke coming out of something, even though I don't see the fire, I infer fire there. For example, I'm seeing a lot of smoke coming out of my neighbor's house. I'm inside my home and I infer that some homa or something is happening in their home, hence there is a lot of smoke. So I do this because I know the vyapti between smoke and fire. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. I know that. How do I know that? Because of my experience. I have seen smoke and fire coexisting in many places. So that is the main important kilakam we say in Shastra for any anumiti. So I also want to introduce this concept called vyapti. Vyapti, as told earlier, invariable coexistence. Invariably coexisting objects have vyapti between them. So it's a kind of a relationship, invariable relationship. For example, the prosecution had this kind of a vyapti jnana inside their brain. They were thinking like this. So whoever has blood stains on their clothes and they are moving, commuting at the same time when the crime is committed, they are murderers. So this came out of their own experience. They have seen people, they are arguing cases in many different courts that where a person is seen with a lot of blood stains and who is running away or seen on the crime site before or after or something like that, then they actually infer him to be a murderer. And this happened because they had that experience. So wherever there are blood stains and people moving in the same time, there they are inferring them to be murderers. So that is the prosecution's vyapti jnana. And this vyapti jnana can be defined like this. Vyabhichara jnana asahakrita sahachara jnana. So two more new terms I am using. Vyabhichara jnana and sahachara jnana. Sahachara jnana is very easy. In our regional languages also, we use this word sahachar. Ye mera sahachar hai, sahachar karmachari. So we use these words in our Indian languages. So sahachara means coexistence. And vyabhichara is the opposite of coexistence, contrary of coexistence. So vyabhichara jnana is the knowledge of inconsistency. Means the opposite of coexistence. I have taken this word inconsistency. So it is not consistent. And sahachara jnana is the knowledge of coexistence. So when will somebody derive vyapti jnana or definite correlation? when there is no vyabhichara jnana and there is sahachara jnana in many places, then only it will result in a vyapti jnana. I will repeat it again. When I don't know the inconsistency between two related entities and I know the coexistence of those two related entities in many places, such kind of a knowledge is the reason for vyapti, is the reason for definite correlation. For example, in our previous example, our prosecution didn't have the vyabhichara jnana, means they don't know the inconsistency between blood stains and murderer. And they have seen people who are murderers with a lot of blood stains in many places. So they don't know the inconsistency and they know the coexistence. Hence, our prosecution had a vyapti that whoever wore or whoever is wearing a blood-stained shirt or a pant and moving at the same time of the crime, and they are murderers. This is the kind of a vyapti jnana they have. I want to further elaborate what is vyapti and its lakshana using this example of a donkey and a pot. So there was a young boy. So his father is a potter who makes pots. So from his childhood, he never went out of his own village. He was always in his village. And in his village, all the potters have donkeys. So they were using donkeys to bring that clay, that heavy clay to their workshop. So from the beginning, from his childhood, he was seeing donkeys wherever there are pots. So wherever there are pots, there are donkeys. So for him, there is no vyabhichara jnana. So there is no inconsistency between a donkey and a pot. And he knows the sahachara jnana, coexistence of pots and donkeys in the workshop. So workshop is the location. In the location which is called workshop and his village, he's been seeing donkeys and pots. So what happens for him? If he sees a donkey somewhere, he will correlate with the pot always, because he don't have the vyabhichara jnana. He don't know the inconsistency, just like our prosecution. Okay. But once he is grown up, he goes out of the village and he is now seeing many other workshops. In those workshops, people are using their own hands to bring the clay to the workshop. Okay. So now he understood that there is no definite correlation between donkeys and pots, which means that for the first time in his life, he is knowing the vyabhichara jnana or the inconsistency. Till he didn't knew the inconsistency, whenever he saw a donkey, he could infer a pot. A pot is being made somewhere here because I'm seeing a donkey here. So the Rajakas or the people who wash clothes were not using donkeys in his village. But he once went out of his village, even the people who are washing clothes, the Rajakas, were also using donkeys, and the potters are not using donkeys. So because of these instances, he understood that there is no definite correlation between donkey and pot. Hence, hereafter, whenever he sees a donkey, he will not infer a pot. So our definition, vyabhichara jnana asahakrita sahachara jnana, is an apt definition for a vyapti. Okay. Now we'll come back to the main topic of today's talk, which is called hetvabhasa. So there are two words in this technical term, which is hetu and abhasa. Abhasa is something which looks like that and which is not that. Something like water seen in a desert. We see something which is moving like water from a far away distant place in a desert. And if we go further to take water, we don't see water there. We don't get the water there. So that kind of a thing is called as abhasa. And there are many other synonyms to that, which is Brahma and many other things in Sanskrit, in the Shastras. So Hetva Bhasa is something which looks like a Hetu. And Hetu means the reason which is used to infer something. That is the Hetu. And Hetva Bhasa is that which looks like a Hetu and is not a Hetu. And when the Uttara Paksha or the opponent identifies the Hetva Bhasa, the Prakrita Paksha will be defeated. The person who actually started the argument will be defeated when his opponent finds out a fault in his own reasoning. So this is what happens in the argumentation. So how to win an argument? There are two ways. Number one is that you have to identify the flaws of your opponent and state it nicely. Number two is that you should not make any flaws in your own argumentation. So these are the two kilakas, two important things that we have to keep in our mind whenever we are into the process of argumentation. So I want to show that the defense's opening statement actually shows an Hetva Bhasa in the prosecution's opening statement. So the defense is using that because Ramu didn't murder Somu, means Ramu did not kill Somu because Ramu couldn't handle that heavy instrument which is stated in the FIR, because he is physically differently abled person, which means that he can't hear, number one. Number two is that his leg and hands are not functional. Why the defense have added that he can't hear? Because if he could have hear something, that loud scream, he would have actually gone inside and tell the police himself. Because he's a deaf person, he cannot hear, he didn't approach the police. So to establish that, the defense also added that he cannot hear. And the defense has all the evidences that he can't hear and he is paralyzed. His leg and hand, one part of his own body is not functioning. So here there is a Hetva Bhasa. So to understand what is the Hetva Bhasa, I will elaborate what are the different kinds of Hetva Bhasas we have and what is the definition of Hetva Bhasa. Actually, this is just the Nirvachanam or the etymology of Hetva Bhasa. Hetuvad abhasante iti Hetva Bhasa, which seems like a reason. But the actual definition of Hetva Bhasa is that the knowledge which contradicts the knowledge of reason. For example, till the defense did not open their statement, did not state this thing, whatever the prosecution have stated seems to be true. There is nothing wrong in their statement. Once the defense starts their own argumentation, then the prosecution's statement seems to be flawed. There is something wrong in their reason. So that kind of a statement can be called a statement where there is Hetva Bhasa. So I will state you what are the different types of Hetva Bhasas using the same scenario. Before entering into that, you have to know what is the difference between a Hetva Bhasa and its counterpart. So Hetva Bhasa is a fallacious reason and Sadhetu is the right, valid reason. So the opponent or opposite of valid reasoning is called Hetva Bhasa. And we have to know the attributes of both of them to understand them better. So first of all, we know what is a Sadhetu, what is a valid reason. So a valid reason is called as a Hetu, okay, reason, and it is always present in the Paksha. Paksha is the location of the reason. For example, in our previous statement, Paksha is Ramu and Hetu is all this thing which is stated in the blue color, because he couldn't handle the heavy instrument as he is a physically differently abled person. So this is my hetu. And this hetu is present in the paksha. Paksha is Ramu. So it is called as the minor term in Western logic. It's called as the minor term. Paksha is called as the minor term. And the second one is that in every sadhetu or valid reason, we find vyapti. And vyapti is nothing but the invariable relationship, definite relationship between hetu and sadhya. Now you know what is hetu. Hetu is a reason. And sadhya is the major term, which is what are you inferring is called as sadhya. What are you inferring is called sadhya. For example, in our previous example, did not murder Somu is the sadhya or the major term. That is the very important thing which I am inferring out of this reasoning. So that is called as the major term in Western logic. And the invariable relationship between hetu and sadhya is present in the valid reason, number 2. This is the second attribute. And the third attribute is that all hetu, sadhya and paksha. Now you know what are these three things. These are the three technical terms I am using in this session. Hetu, sadhya and paksha are absolute, which means that they are potent. So being potent is that they are not broken. So they are full, they are total. For example, if I say golden Ramu did not murder Somu because so and so blah blah blah. If I state golden Ramu, there is nothing, nobody called golden Ramu. There is no person built out of gold. Hence, that kind of a paksha is not an absolute paksha. We call that as asiddha. It's not ready. It's not ready to be used. Okay. So all hetu, sadhya and paksha should be absolute, should be potent. So these are the attributes of sadhetu. Now I have some more attributes for an asadhetu or hetva bhasa, which is an invalid reason where the hetu or the reason is not present in the paksha. So paksha is the major term, minor term. For example, in the prosecution's opening statement, in the prosecution's opening statement also we find the reason. In some, I will give you the examples also. In some places where the reason is not present in the paksha, that kind of a hetu is a hetva bhasa. That hetu is a hetva bhasa. That hetu is a not good hetu, invalid hetu. Number 2, where there is no invariable relationship between hetu and sadhya. So there is no vyapti between hetu and sadhya. Such kind of a hetu is also an invalid reason. And where hetu, sadhya and paksha are not potent, they are not ready, they are not siddha. And those kinds of reasons are also taken as invalid reasons. Okay, so this is the brief introduction of hetva bhasa and sadhetu. Now we'll move on to know what are the different kinds, types of hetva bhasas. So first of all, in the prosecution's opening statement, the reason is not a valid reason. Why? There is a hetva bhasa called vyabhichara. If you remember, in the definition of vyapti, we have used the word vyabhichara. So vyabhichara is nothing but the inconsistency. Vyabhichara jnana is the knowledge of inconsistency. So the first kind of a hetva bhasa is vyabhichara. So to simplify that, I can say inconsistency between hetu and sadhya. Inconsistency between the reason and what you are inferring. If there is some inconsistency, then that kind of a hetu is not a good hetu. Now, who should state this? The defense should state that your hetu or your reasoning is not right by showing some example, by showing some logic. For example, the prosecution told that Ramu murdered Somu because he had blood stains on his shirt while he is coming out of the Somu's house at the same time. So here we have one thing, blood stains and coming out of the home at the same time. Now, whoever has blood stains on their shirt shouldn't be a murderer always. See, a butcher can always have a lot of blood marks of the goats and sheep and other livestock on his shirt because he's always cutting them. Okay, a lot of blood spills onto his shirt and he has that shirt, blood-stained shirt, and it doesn't prove that he's a murderer. Even though he is actually killing the animals, here the word murderer is actually killing a human being. Okay, we have to redefine some terms. Okay, murderer means he killed illegally somebody. Okay, killing a goat or killing a sheep is not illegal, but killing a person is illegal because that is why he is a murderer. Okay, now the defense is showing the vyabhichara or inconsistency between the blood stains and the term murderer. Butcher have lots of blood stains on his shirt and he is not legally a murderer. He is not considered to be a murderer. So this kind of a invalid reason is called as vyabhichara. And the second one is viruddha. So whoever know some regional languages, we use this term many times in our regional language. So viruddha is that person who always contradicts your view. He is called viruddha. For example, a person always wants to join his children into a gurukula, and his wife always don't want to join their children into gurukula, then those two are viruddha to each other. That is the general usage of the word viruddha in day-to-day life. But in the Shastra, the word viruddha is used when a reason is having an invariable relationship with the absence of sadhya. Generally, a reason is expected to have an invariable relationship with a sadhya. But here in this scenario, in the viruddha scenario, when a reason is having an invariable relationship with the absence of sadhya, then it is called as viruddha. I am giving you an example here. Ramu murdered Somu because he is differently abled. So this is a kind of a, a viruddha hetu. Because a differently abled person who don't have much agility in his body, he can't use a very heavy, sharp object to kill somebody. So if somebody is using this as their reasoning, then the reason can be stated as viruddha. Okay, hope everybody is understanding what I am trying to say here. So viruddha is such a thing that a reason which is having an invariable relationship with not the sadhya, but its absence, or which is contradicting the sadhya. So such kind of a reason is called viruddha. And the third thing is sat pratipaksha. And actually the prosecution have used a flawed reason, and the defense actually identified the sat pratipaksha dosha there. So I will demonstrate what is it. So here the prosecution is saying that Ramu did not commit the murder because he couldn't, not the prosecution, but the defense, sorry. Ramu did not commit the murder because he couldn't handle the heavy instrument as he is a physically differently abled person. So what the defense want to establish here? The defense wants to establish the contradictory view of the sadhya, contradictory view of the prosecution by stating another reason. So this is the perfect example for sat pratipaksha. So in our regional languages also, we use the word pratipaksha. Pratipaksha is the opposition. Sat pratipaksha means where there is a stable opposition, it's called as sat pratipaksha. Okay. So what does pratipaksha do? So pratipaksha always contradicts whatever you are trying to establish. So here the prosecution wanted to establish that Ramu committed the murder, and the defense wanted to establish that he did not commit the murder. And the defense actually used the reasoning well. So where the reason don't have any flaws in it, the reason is present in the paksha, the hetu is present in the paksha, the hetu has vyapti with the sadhya, and all paksha, hetu and sadhya are potent. So that is why the prosecution's reason is flawed, and the defense have identified that as the sat pratipaksha, and this is the third kind of hetva bhasa. And there is one another hetva bhasa which is called as swarupa siddha. Swarupa siddha is also one another invalid reason, where the reason is not present in the paksha, where the reason is not present in the paksha. For example, if the defense prove that the blood stains have another kind of a blood group to them than Ramu's blood group. So Ramu is in a blood pool of blood. They will test that blood also, and the blood group of that blood is different. And the blood stains what Ramu had is of a different blood group. So in that situation, what is happening is that the reason what the prosecution is stating is not present in the paksha. And this kind of a invalid reasoning is called as swarupa siddha, when the hetu or the reason is not present in the paksha. And the last one is that, the fifth kind of a hetva bhasa is called as badhita. And badhita means that where the sadhya itself is not present in the paksha. Sadhya means what we are inferring, what we are trying to infer, that itself is not present in the paksha. For example, if the defense proves that Somu is alive, which means that Ramu did not murder Somu. If I can prove that Somu is alive, it means that he is not murdered, which means that the sadhya or the major term what the prosecution wanted to establish itself is not present in the paksha. And this kind of a invalid reason is called as badhita. Hence, we have all these 5 different kinds of hetva bhasas, and there is more elaboration in the Shastra. I have just simplified and try to make you understand in this 45 minutes. So these are the 5 different kinds of hetva bhasas that are there. And in our present scenario, we can say that the prosecution's reasoning is not right, and the defense can easily establish that there is a sat pratipaksha in the prosecution's reasoning, and hence the prosecution will eventually lose the argument, and the judge will not be in a dilemma, will not have any doubt, and he will state that Ramu is not the murderer of Somu. So these are the small introductory concepts which you can learn, and we can always use all these concepts in actually evaluating what is happening and what people are writing and all those things, how people are debating in the TV channels and other places, by knowing these different things. And I just want to recap what all things I have stated today. Number 1 is samshaya, which is a doubt. Eka sambandhi jnanam, apara sambandhi smarakam is the definition of that. The second one is pratyaksha, where we know something by using our sensory organs, that is called pratyaksha. And anumana is the process of inference. Because of the vyapti or the definite correlation, we try to know indirectly something else. So that process is called as anumana. And a very important thing, vyapti. So vyapti is the kilaka for anumana and etva bhasa also. So vyapti is the invariable coexistence between 2 things which are called hetu and sadhya. And also we have the important topic of today's talk, which is Hetvabhasa and its types like Savyabhichara, Viruddha, Satpratipaksha, Swarupa Siddha, and Badhita. There are many types more in the Shastra, but I did not elaborate about all those types. And we have three short terms, which are Paksha, which is the minor term or the location of Sadhya. Sadhya, the inferred, what we are inferring, which is called the major term, and also the Hetu, which is the middle term. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Now I am open for questions.
Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very good introduction to also a sample for how rigorous the methodology of Tarka Shaastra is. If there are any questions, let us take up the questions. So there is one anonymous attendee who is saying, what does the same time mean? How do we know it?
So that again, we'll be knowing because of the investigation itself. So because people around say that watchman also says that at the same time, when the loud scream came out of the house, in that same period of time, Ramu is coming out of that house. So that is same time there.
So there is another question. Is illusion, there can also be reasoning out like in worldly action called doubt? This question is not very clear.
Yeah.
What he wants to know. Doubt and illusion, are they both one and the same?
So doubt so we can only state that that particular knowledge is an illusion only after validating it. So you can only say that it is not a snake but a rope when there is a lot of light and which is actually making it clear that it's not a snake and it's a rope. But doubt, in the time when we are in the state of doubt, there we are knowing two different contradictory attributes in the same time. So that is a doubt. So doubt has a part. One part of doubt is always an illusion. That we can say.
Yeah. There is another question. Whereas Tarka was used for dharmic samvada, we know evidences are there. But is there a recorded evidence of kings using this in their judgments?
Yes, extensively we have recorded evidences in the Dharma Shaastra. And the Dharma Shaastra is actually showing the path for us in the Vyavahara Kanda. Many places we have that.
No, his question is Dharma Shaastra has already used, but did the kings use this?
Yeah. Yes, sir. We can know that by going through the Puranas and the Itihasas. We'll know how.
I will try to answer this question, Mr. Anuj Balmiki. We have epigraphical, inscriptional evidences and other evidences, literary evidences, where we see that the Dharma Nirnaya in a Dharma Sadas by the king was done with the help of Pradvivak and Adhikaranika kind of judicial assistants. And there is a mention of such judicial assistants in the play Mrichakatika also, where there is a scene, court scene, where the Shakara, the brother-in-law of the king, who is shown in the play to be a gunda, a rowdy, he threatens the judicial officers. So the king used to take the help of these judicial officials who were not only experts in the Dharma Shastra, they were experts in the Dharma Nirnaya procedure also. So it was those officials who were using the Tarka Shastra procedures that are mentioned here. So those, when they used to discuss among themselves or argue with the representatives, then all these procedures were used. Kings were also trained. There is a mention in all the Itihasas and Puranas and Kavyas, that kings were also trained in these methods so that they can see whether the judicial officials were following the right procedures or not. So if you collect and put all these evidences together, you can see that all these rigorous procedures were followed by the officials of the king, and king was able to supervise that activity. And there are questions like how old is this framework? Another question is, where is the book? In which shastra can I learn this thing?
Yeah. So actually, we can find these concepts extensively in Nyaaya Sutra and its commentaries like Nyaaya Bhashya, and the later derived Tarka texts like Muktavali, Dinakari, and all those things. We have a lot of content. So, how old is this framework? It is very old. We can, so stating the date is always a very tricky thing, but we can state that it is as old as Paniniya Sutras.
Okay, there are other questions with regard to the example itself. Who established that Ramu is truly handicapped?
That the defense will establish by showing his physical condition, and there might be some certificates also to state that. Why Ramu did not inform? Because the watchman did not approach Ramu at all. The watchman was seeing Ramu from a long, distant place. So he did not inform watchman. Yeah. This watchman is not of that home. He is the watchman of the other person's home.
Dr. Soumya Saraswati M is asking, what is the difference between Hetva Bhasa and Aprama?
Hetva Bhasa is the Prama or the true knowledge. Hetva Bhasa, the opponent will get the Hetva Bhasa, will identify the Hetva Bhasa, and the knowledge of Hetva Bhasa is true, and Aprama is illusion. So, for example, in our example, the defense actually understood the Hetva Bhasa, and they have stated the Hetva Bhasa that your reason has this Hetva Bhasa, and eventually it states that the prosecution's statement is a Aprama, is not valid.
So, are there any courses on Tarka Shaastra?
Yeah, there are many courses that I also teach, and we have many institutes which are teaching Tarka.
There are two kinds of courses. Who is this? Rangarao Garu. Rangarao Garu, there are two kinds of courses. Courses taught for traditional students by traditional gurus, and courses taught by traditional scholars like Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu for contemporary audience. Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu is teaching the Tarka Shaastra courses for contemporary audience also. So, if there is any modern person who is interested in directly learning Tarka Shaastra without actually going through the entire time scale of the traditional course also, you may approach Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu, the today's speaker, for such courses. Yes. How can vyapti be used as a definitive generalized inference? There will always be anumana, right?
So, not all vyapti will derive as a anumana or a anumiti. If there are vyapti samshaya, means doubt in the vyapti, then it will not lead to a definite inference. So, did I answer that question, sir?
Raviji, was your question answered? How can vyapti be used as a definitive generalized inference? There will always be. Oh, probably you are using the word anumana in the sense of samshaya. Anumana is in contemporary Indian languages, people use the word anumana in the sense of samshaya.
Samshaya, yeah.
So that is not the right technical term. Probably you want to say that how can vyapti be used as a definitive generalized inference? There will always be samshaya left. Probably.
Okay. If there is samshaya, you will not get you will not infer at all. First of all, and vyapti will not lead to any kind of a samshaya, for sure. If you have that vyapti, you will have definite knowledge. It will not be in the samshaya mode.
What is the corresponding framework of the scientific framework? Ceteris paribus in Tarka Shaastra. Was there any use of counterfactual thinking in Tarka Shaastra?
I actually did not understand the question, sir, because there is.
Yeah. So ceteris paribus is a Latin word. Probably anonymous attendee, you should explain what it means. Counterfactual thinking in Tarka Shastra. If you are talking about reduxa absurdum, indirect proof, it is called indirect proof. In Tarka Shastra, there are words like uha and apoha. So this comes under apoha. Through apoha also reasoning can be done. So probably if you are talking about thinking on the basis of the invalidity of the initial assumption, this is called indirect proof in the contemporary parlance. That is called apoha in the traditional parlance. Images showed that watchman is behind. Okay, namaste. Thank you. This has been very insightful and explained very simple, easy language. Could you please suggest any English text that explains these concepts in a simple and easy manner?
So we have one English translation done by Professor V.N. Jha, sir, for Tarka Sangraha that can be used.
Namaskaram. This is Vedangaha. If the opposition is wrong, but is stable in its replies, would it still be Sapratipaksha? Can you please explain what in the context the term Sat is taken?
Sat means sun iti Sat, existing. The meaning of Sat is existing. It's not good here. And if the replies of the prosecution are right, then further the investigation and the argumentation goes into the small aspects of the reasoning, and it can go further.
Because Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana garu can teach the modern students also. Rangarao garu wants to know the contact details of Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana garu. If you can share, sir, your details in chat, your phone number and email address, that may be useful.
Yes.
Could you please suggest a good book on these topics? Already just now he has shared the name of the good book. Please share details of for me to
you can
register.
Contact me in that email ID, sir. I will respond.
In this case, the prosecution was sloppy. Why they did not avoid being sloppy?
Because it was created by me to show you the different types. So I have created that in such a way that one is weak and one is strong.
Excellent. So which book can we access that makes Nyaaya Shastra and its commentaries accessible to those who don't know Sanskrit but are more conversant with English? Already, just now, he mentioned. What benefit does learning logic through Tarka Shastra tradition that Western tradition of logic does not give us?
I can't answer this, sir, because I didn't learn Western logic at all. But I can state what are the benefits of learning Tarka Shastra. So we have a saying called as Kanadam Paniniyancha Sarvashastropakarakam. So whatever kind of the knowledge which is originated in India can be easily deciphered and known in a better way when you are learning Tarka Shastra.
There is a question from Professor of Philosophy of Law, Sri Lakshmi Peddada garu. She is asking, in Western logic, there is a distinction between invalidity and fallacy. Is there such a distinction in Tarka Shastra?
I actually did not understand the question.
So invalid conclusion and fallacious reason. Is there any difference between these two?
Yes, sir. There is. As I have stated in the previous question also, the difference between Hetva Bhasa and Aprama. So invalid will be Aprama and fallacy can be Hetva Bhasa. Knowing fallacy is a right knowledge, means it's a valid knowledge.
So, Srilashmi garu, was your question answered? Rama and You can be promoted as a panelist also. You can speak if you are promoted as a panelist. You can speak. Srinivas Garu, you may promote Shreyashmi Garu as panelist. She may be able to speak. This is more a question for a future talk than a question about the current topic. One of the pressing needs of public discourse today is how to identify and avoid disinformation. How can we use elements of Tarka Shaastra for this purpose?
Srilekshmi Garu, you can please go ahead.
Yeah.
Shreyashmi Garu, you may unmute yourself and speak.
Sir, unfortunately, she left, I think, by mistake.
Okay.
Okay. So
She's-
now,
She's a panelist now. She's there.
yeah, she can speak
yeah.
now.
Yeah. And namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Namaste. No, in Western logic, validity and invalidity is about deductive reasoning. In the terms of deductive means where the inference is derived from the premise. Like for instance, suppose I say A is taller than B, you can immediately infer that B is shorter than A. Or if you say all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal, is derived from the premise. This is a deductive reasoning. And suppose I say Socrates is immortal, then it becomes invalid. But in a fallacy for Western people, it is all about popular emotions. So they differentiate between reasoning and emotion. So I was wondering if there is something like that in Indian concept. A fallacy will be that which looks like reasoning, but it's actually emotional. And there is no reason. That's a fallacy according to Western interpretation. So I don't know if I'm able to.
Yeah, I could understand, ma'am, but
Yeah.
The invalid thing is called as aprama, that I know.
I see a
I think my English translation was not right. I don't know about that. I actually wanted to state what are those hetva bhasas
okay.
which are stated in the Tarka Shaastra. So the word fallacious reasoning might be apt or not, I don't know.
Okay.
So
But there are no see, in Western logic, there's a distinction between the term used for derived reasoning and the term used for emotional reasoning, which is pretended as if it is reasoning. An emotion which is pretended as a reasoning is a fallacy, where there's no reasoning.
We don't have such reasoning.
Such distinction. Okay.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was just I had a doubt about that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, but the presentation was just extraordinary and very beautiful.
Thank you.
I think many teachers can learn from you, the way you have presented everything. Yeah, thank you very much. Namaste. Yeah, namaste.
Sridhar Chintalapati is translating ceteris paribus as all other things being equal. So is there something like all other things being equal in Tarka Shastra?
I didn't understand the.
No. While we are not considering all other factors, while we are considering only this factor, we are all other factors in the reasoning. Okay, we are just taking them as equal.
Okay, so there are some concepts very near to that. So we use the word tushyatu durjana. So in those places, we call that as anumatam. Anumatam, where we take everything equal and we are only argumenting in one particular aspect. We take all other things granted, take it for granted, and we only argue in one small concept or aspect. So that might be near to that, but I don't remember this kind of a thing.
So my boundary of Jayapradeep Jyotishi is asking, my boundary of vyapti and the opponent's vyapti can be different. then how can there be an agreement?
They have to come, means they have to be in the same boundary. Then only we can argue between each other. So till that don't happen, we converse with others. We will try to establish our vyapti. We'll try to convince.
Okay. So I did not follow what is the Pratipaksha in the example. Can you please repeat?
Pratipaksha is the second party which is arguing, which is called Pratipaksha, Purvapaksha and Pratipaksha.
Okay. I have been in Canada for 60 years. I always hear lawyers saying there is no justice in the countries, in this country's courts. There is law but not justice. Does this happen in Bharatiya Paddhati? That is not the topic of the day, Naveen Chandraji. Okay, Srinivas Jammalamadaka ji is saying that is Arthapatti. Srinivas Garu, can you promote Srinivas Jammalamadaka Garu? He will be able to explain what he wanted to say when it is Arthapatti.
Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste. Srinivas Garu is
Namaste.
part of our project, Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. He is in the Law of Evidence project and he is part of many other activities also. I have to.
And I'm the younger brother. And I'm younger brother.
He is the younger brother of Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana. So please go ahead.
Yeah. So what Sri Lakshmi ji said, right, that if the person A is taller and if the person B is shorter, then it is derived that through the deduction theory that B is shorter, I mean, than the A or something like that. So that I told that that will come under the Arthapatti section of Pramanas. Without that, without B being shorter, A cannot be taller, or without A being taller, B cannot be shorter. So this kind of a theory will come under the Arthapatti section. Even there is again, Mimamsakas agree that Arthapatti is a independent Pramana, and Nyayikas, they said that it comes under the Anumana Pramana, that is the inferential cognition itself. Yeah, that was my...
Okay, so thank you very much, both the brothers, Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu and Jammalamadaka Srinivas Garu. Thank you very much, Madam Professor Sri Lakshmi Peddada Garu. Actually, Sri Lakshmi Peddada Garu is part of the family which contributed to the Center for Indic Studies in Law and Justice. She is from Pamigantam Kodanrame Garu's family. We are so fortunate that she not only sat through the whole session, but she participated through her questions also. Thank you very much, ma'am. And thanks to all the inquisitive participants who brought wonderful questions to the table and made the discussion enriched through their questions. And I thank all the participants, audience who participated. I thank our Srinivas Garu and Koti Garu who worked behind the screens. And last but not the least, the whole person behind our founder, Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu, who is instrumental behind all these activities and who is so imaginative to create a series of these programs. And our own Sri Megha Kalyana Sundaram Garu, who actually organized this talk with good imagination and approaching Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu. And the Ritvik of the day, the main person here, Jammalamadaka Suryanarayana Garu, once again, I thank you very much for such wonderful pedagogy, your teaching style, your simplifying very deep and intricate aspects with such good examples and deck of slides and all that was wonderful. I think we can have a series of such talks from you brothers for the benefit of all the audience. And those who are interested in attending courses on Tarka Shaastra, you may approach either Suryanarayana Garu or Srinivas Garu, or they will guide you to other platforms where Shastras are being taught, keeping modern audience as target audience. Then you can approach the other platforms also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.